morning, Richard. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Randy. How you doing?
All right, we're here for another Tuesday morning coffee talk, and I think the topic this morning that you and I wanted to talk about is one that folks have heard before, but maybe some different takes on it, and that is how to develop some bullet points on how to develop the sound of your ensemble.
Right, and you and I talked about doing this just because we both do a lot of conducting with different groups, whether they be honor bands. You do your community band, of course, and honor bands and all-state bands and those kind of things. But you tend to learn after every one of those experiences. And one of the things I've learned from the last couple of weeks doing honor bands is that this idea of reinforcing the 4 critical points to sounding good really will make a difference, even if you only have 2 days or so to work with your kids. And the 4 things that I just want to remind everyone to take some time with, and I know most people do this, I just wish people would do it a little bit more, and I'll include myself in that as well. I wish people would take a little bit more time to talk to kids about sound or do some demonstrations with sound. One of the things that I'll do with kids is I'll have them, since I don't know them very well, I'll just ask for a volunteer. I'll ask them to play a comfortable note on their instrument. For trumpets, it might be the open G, who knows what it might be. On oboe, it may be their A, something that they're very comfortable with, or G. But then I'll ask them to give us or me some feedback about how they felt their sound was in relationship to, were they playing with a really good tone quality, or was there some fuzz or extra noise in the sound? And so just approaching it from a standpoint of, let's not necessarily talk about bright and dark sounds and those kind of things. Let's just talk about a clear sound. Can we get clear sounds? And it's amazing to me because after I'll have a couple of volunteers do that, and then the whole band plays, all of a sudden the sound is different. Because even though kids, you haven't really given them information about how to change it, they know how to change it with their face, and with their ears, et cetera. And so immediately you get a little different sound. So the second thing that we really work on with these honor bands when I do them, and I know it because I've done it with lots of groups in the fall too, in the summer and fall for marching band, is just idea of blend. And I still think that a lot of students don't understand that if they're sitting or standing in between 2 other members in their section, that those people are supposed to sound like one. We're not supposed to hear them as individuals. Now, a lot of directors that are watching this right now will say, well, duh, everyone knows that. And I think for the most part, everyone does know that. But my question is, do they really do that? And so what I'll do is I'll have 3 clarinets stand up. And I did this the other day with an honor band in California. I said, I want you 3 to stand up and I want you to play your low C, B flat concert, low B flat concert. I said, the rest of the band, I want you to raise your hand when those 3 kids sound like one. And I was shocked because there were still some intonation beats that were happening and kids started to raise their hands. And so this is something that I think we have to continue to reinforce. And then of course, other kids were saying, no, you shouldn't have your hands up. Couldn't you hear the intonation beats? But anyway, you're getting the point across that if you're sitting between 2 people, you're part of that trio, and that trio is critical no matter what. And here's the other thing that you have to remind them, not just on F concert, not just on B flat concert, but even if they're playing, the next thing I'll do is I'll say, I want you to play the highest note. I want you to work your way up to the highest note you play in the march right now. And then I want you to try to blend your sound. And with flutes the other day, we were doing what we're doing, Thunderer, I think. And there's high A's in the flutes. And I said, flutes, I want to hear you guys try to match your high A's. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, no, okay, maybe it'll be out of tune or whatever, but can you match it? Can you all play it at the same volume? And they did it. And the whole band kind of went, oh, wow, that sounds way better. And I'm like, yeah, it sounds way better. It's not even in tune yet. All right. But it was blended, even on a high A. So the clear tone, the blend idea is so important. And sometimes I think we'll talk about it for a while, then forget about it. The next thing is the balance thing. And this is something that really throws some of my honor bands for a loop. And this is something we always did at Carmel. And Randy, I've heard your bands forever. And I know you, whether you say it the same way or not, I know it's a similar philosophy. But we build our sound from the bottom up. most bands build their sound from the top down. And when we got, and this last band I was working with is California, they were very, very good technically, but they couldn't get that ensemble sound. And after we made sure that the tubas, even bari sax, bass clarinet, as soon as the low instruments were dominating the sound, and then we started to build it up from there. And we got to the point where actually the trumpets, flutes, clarinets realized that they were really only about 15% of the ensemble sound, which freaked them out a little bit, but they tried to do it. And there was a time on the last day where they played their F, and the director was sitting next to me, and he just kind of went, whoa. And I was like, and all the kids went, whoa, you know, because they had never sounded like that. You know, and it's just from balance. So now we've talked about clear tone, we've talked about blend, we've talked about balancing from the bottom up. The last thing is intonation. Here's the good news. If they take care of those three things, you're not going to have to talk about intonation very much, because that's going to take care of itself, especially the blend and balance thing. But I still had to numerous times use the technology, whether it was you know, the tonal energy tuner, or occasionally a harmony director. But with tonal energy, I would just hold it up to a couple of people, and I would say, what do you think you are? And they think, well, you know, I'm usually right in tune. And then all of a sudden they're showing 20 cents sharp, you know, and I go down the line with flutes and they'd all be 20 and 30 cents sharp. And they're like, whoa, what? They're like, well, I don't think we normally play like that. And I'm like, well, you probably do. You know, and once they brought that pitch down, completely changed the sound of the band. So though I know I'm taking a little time with this, but I believe in it more than ever. Even the older I get, the more I believe in it. Clear tone, make sure your kids understand blend, make sure they understand balancing from the bottom up, especially in marching band, so important. All right, and then take some time with the technology and check your kids' tuning. It will, like that, change the sound of your band. And Randy, I'll let you finish up on this. I talked too much already, but I know you believe in the same things. And you know, your bands were some of the best I ever heard when I was teaching. And so I know you focused on the same things. You may have said things a little differently, but I think we both believe in the same concept.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think the other piece of it too, maybe add a fifth step. I was doing some score study this morning, and we're going to be reading some new pieces with the community group. And I was already predetermining in my mind, okay, this is in the very high tessitura for flutes. We're changing their dynamic.
Yep.
So there's just not enough of that going on. There's way too much. Oh, the dynamics are what they are. In the score, oh my gosh, I spend probably most of my time blend, balance, and actualizing dynamics to get the blend to be what it needs to be. And
you're exactly right.
And the investigative part of that is, let's say you have a euphonium French horn color, and unless the composer has determined, you know, I was reading a Shenandoah by Frank DeKelly the other day.
Great piece.
That he wanted the euphonium sound to support the French horn color. You got to make sure that the dynamics are right for that to happen, and that comes down to your instrumentation, the size of your group, the maturity of the player. And so those are the sorts of decisions you have to be making as a director. You are a sound engineer. You're not just a musician. And the other things are very, very important too, but those color decisions are so, I think sometimes that's what makes the difference. But besides, obviously, the artistry and the shaping and the musical ideas, I think sometimes that's what makes the difference between a really outstanding group and a group that's really good.
Well, you are so right on. And I think I've done 4 or 5 honor bands so far this winter. And if you went and asked the flutes and clarinets what Saucedo told us the most, they would all tell you that I said their instruments are dangerous. And your instruments can hurt people. and so every time I would look at them and say, what's your dynamic? And they'd say double forte. And I'd say, what's your dynamic? And they would say, oh, mezzo forte. Yes, correct. And they would hear immediately how much better it sounded, how much better in tune, etc. So they bought into it eventually. But that's another thing I think what you're talking about, directors will find is very consistent is watch your upper woodwinds, because man, they, especially when they get up above the staff, they just start killing people, you know, and I learned that from, I think you and I both talked to Kyle Young about this too. And he was a big believer in that you got to watch your dynamics up there. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah, it's definitely makes a difference, makes a huge difference. So, you know, consider dynamics when you're thinking about the sound of your group, and continue to work hard. Richard and I will continue to try to give you as much information as we can through our experiences and the experiences with others as we continue to learn too, on our next episode of Coffee Talk. Take care and have a great week.
Yep. Take care, everybody. Thanks.